And thank you all for joining us today and taking time out of your schedule to come to our panel discussion of Apprenticeships Reimagined. So we're excited to host this event for you in National Apprenticeship Week. I'll be your host this afternoon. My name is Wendy Kostenbauer. I'm the Grant Program Manager for the Maine Apprenticeship Program. And behind our scenes and our technical advisor is Christine McAllister, our Labor Program Specialist. Today, we've invited a few panelists to join us and talk about apprenticeship. You will hear from them and about their registered apprenticeship programs. We would ask that if you have any questions, you put it in the chat or the Q&A box, and we will resume our conversation to the chat at the end of our programming. Our panelists today are Kate Durkin from Reimagined Energy, Mindy Reynolds from Washington County Community College, Christian Braden from Maine Aquaculture Association, and Carissa Morin from the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. Our first panelist up is Kate Durkin. Kate is from Iowa and has a bachelor's degree in social work. She previously supported workforce development initiatives in Colorado before moving to Maine. Kate was attracted to Reimagined Energy by the company's mission to solve environmental issues and lessen economic and social injustice. As a Reimagined employee owner, she supports the Reimagined Energy Training Center as the apprenticeship administrator and hopes to create better opportunities for all in a healthy workplace and planet. Kate enjoys time in the sun, trail running, climbing, and generally being outdoors with her partner and 3 children. Kate?
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you all for being here today. I'm excited for sharing the start of National Apprenticeship Week with you all. And as Wendy mentioned, my name is Kate and I'm with Reimagined Energy. And we are a company based out of New England. We have now 7 branches. As of last week, we have grown. We're out of 3 states, Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. And we're around about 460 co-owners. So we've grown. We last week announced the acquisition of Sunbug, which is a solar company, B Corp, in Massachusetts. We have 2 new locations there. And we are a solar energy company. We live, the B Corp values, and our mission is to make life better for those building our equitable and just electric future, as you'll see written there. I said it differently, but you'll see it written there. And today I was brought on the panel to discuss our apprenticeship programs. And as Wendy kind of mentioned, my background has been in workforce development. I worked specifically in the workforce system. So especially with our WIOA programming, and especially with the work-based learning. So I was really attracted to this position. I'd never seen a position of this sort before, and it's been really amazing to see how we have used apprenticeship as a tool to grow and to really make these new positions and pathways apprenticeshipable and equitable, therefore, too. So I'll be talking about our 3 active apprenticeships, our pre-apprenticeships, and then what's to come in 2024 for us. So I'll have Wendy go to the next slide. Or I guess it's Christine probably. So where we started, we obviously are trades. Our foundation of our company is electricians. So we have, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of 150 electrical licensed electricians. Those licenses vary from apprenticeship to limited master here in Maine, all the way to master. And we are unique in a variety of ways. One part of our uniqueness is we offer in-house technical instruction. So as you're kind of thinking about apprenticeship, I like to, not assuming that you have any notions of what apprenticeship is, but apprenticeship is your related technical instruction, the on-the-job training, and transferable certificate or licensure. And all that's within a paid work environment. So it is a pathway of sorts to bring people in and to grow kind of your own. So we've had our electrical program since 2018, as it is today. So it's been an in-house training program, whereas, you know, other electrician or electrical companies and that kind of nature may have an going to the community colleges. So with Mindy, with the community college system, they offer other electrical programs. Ours is in-house. So we have, we use a learning management system, and folks are able to work through and progress through the 4-year pathway for electrician. And then we follow all of the guidelines for ratios for, you know, the journey person and master level to then supervise an apprentice. So this photo here is our graduating class from last year, which was really exciting. I started at Revision last May, and this is one of the first company-wide meetings that we had with a graduation ceremony. So it was a really emotional day to celebrate apprentices in the trades. I even get choked up talking about it now because I feel like it's one of these things that has been overlooked, you know, for a lot of decades, where, you know, these folks here had just finished, you know, 4 years, up to 5 years sometimes to get those professional, you know, hours complete. And so to have the whole company at their feet, clapping and cheering on these folks was really powerful. So I think since 2018, we've had around 21 apprentices achieve their licensure as a journey up to master level. And currently we have around, I mean, Christine will probably have the number a little bit better for me, but I think it's around 45 to 50 in this program. So it's definitely our mainstay for our apprenticeships. And it's really where we've taken it across the company has started from this spot. So this is our first apprenticeship program. And then our following program, if you want to go to the next slide, is our manager program. So in January of this year, we kicked off our first registered manager apprenticeship program here at Revision Energy. We have around 20 to 25 folks. I should have brought my numbers today, Christine. And this one is really impactful because we know that change is really powerful at a leadership level. And so to have conversations about operating systems and even down to like timesheets and performance reviews has been really impactful as we grow so rapidly. So I think we've hired 100 people last year, and we're on track for another 100 this year. And, you know, we might double in size next year. So to have managers on a really equal playing field, having conversations across 3 states, across 7 branches is a really unique way, and we just have such value. You'll see the man with the name tag there is Drew from Mzingo. So we've done a lot of work bringing in a consultant to help us drive home some of these values and management and leadership techniques, which has been really neat. And then again, all of our work is in-house. So we rely on our president, Fortune Mueller, and the rest of our leadership teams to lead these classes. They're taking the time and walking the walk of hosting and being able to offer some of these programs. That's really just a really cool program. This is a year-long program, and all of it applies. So it's related to technical instruction, the professional hours, and then they'll finish with kind of that relatable management certificate at the end. Our third apprenticeship this year, if you go to the next slide, is our solar design apprenticeship program. So this one I am especially excited about. I talk about this a lot, especially in our interviews. In solar, there are not a lot of opportunities to have a solar design degree. We're fortunate enough to find folks to bring in solar experience, but when it comes to like solar design degrees, they're largely hard to come by. And so creating an in-house apprenticeship program in solar design just helps us better serve our customers and better serve each other. Excuse me. So these folks are looking, it's a 2-year program, and they're having conversations with one another and the engineering team that they're joining of, how they can better serve and better design for some of the pieces of our company. So this one has been especially exciting to see. And I believe we have 4 apprentices in this pathway. We just rolled it out in August. So we're hoping that, it'll continue to build as we grow as a company. The other apprenticeships, so our pre-apprenticeships is what we had this year as well. We've partnered with Learning Works to offer a pre-apprenticeship. And this program, and Learning Works, if you didn't know, is a program within the mid-coast area. They're based in Portland, but it sounds like a lot of their youth and young adults are within that area, more in like the Cumberland County, that greater area. This program helps folks achieve high school equivalency diplomas, working a lot of career exploration, folks that are looking for your non-traditional high school diploma route. So you'll see the group here with their leader there, Nate, visiting revision at our South Portland shop. So these folks had in May come to do an on-hands chance to kind of get a feel for what we do and kind of the larger trades and understanding the careers within the company. So it was a really unique opportunity to share some of our programs with those who might still be deciding and looking for maybe a non-traditional route themselves, hands-on. And so we're really excited to have this group, and we're looking to kind of partner with them in 2024 as well. It is this kind of pre-apprenticeship we're still kind of figuring out. It's less rigid. We did some online coursework with them, especially with some of our products, to get some light certificates through there. And we're continuing to kind of modify and develop this pre-apprenticeship. We have found that, we run into some barriers with students looking for just career exploration at this age and still deciding, where they want to be and where they want to go. And so we're, happy to kind of create those, but we're looking to continue to develop some of these pathways for our folks. If you want to go to the next slide. And I'm going to go quickly here. I think my time is getting close here, but our final pre-apprenticeship that we started this year was with Portland Adult Ed and Paths program, both out of Portland here. And this group brought together a chance to learn about renewable energy careers, and specifically heat pumps was a key component, along with PV, the photovoltaic solar panel. And we were just blown away by the first interest. We had spots for 15 for the class based on capacities of Paths and Portland all that, and as well as making sure there was employment at the end of this program. And the interest was huge. We had to turn, folks away. They actually had to vet folks to, be in the program. And then once they were in the program, which started end of February, March, and then finished in May, several had worked, with solar previously, and several had brought engineering degrees, bachelor or master's level degrees for this pre-apprenticeship program. So it's just really exciting to see the level of enthusiasm and interest for something like a renewable energy career. So Revision hired 4 folks 3 joined our electrical program in August, which we're really excited to have. And then we just hired Manuela, who joined the solar design apprenticeship program. There she is right there. And we were so excited to, have her. Her background was civil engineering, and we just couldn't be more happy to have her on our teams here at Revision. So that's what the work we've done this year with apprenticeship, and just found it is just such an unbelievable tool to grow and to grow our own as well. We're excited in 2024 to keep expanding. We have 2 registered programs, and we'll be rolling out next year based on our team's capacity. As you can imagine, rolling out new programs like this takes a lot of hands and teams, which is our training center team. So we have the customer service apprenticeship and then the technical sales apprenticeship, both coming out in 2024. So I'm excited to hear your questions at the end, but thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kate. It sounds like you all are staying busy over there in apprenticeship, and we appreciate your hard work and diligence. Our next panelist is Mindy Reynolds. She is the early childhood and education instructor at Washington County Community College, and also serves as an apprenticeship navigator in the Washington County Community College Workforce and Professional Development Division.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here. This is a very exciting time to be involved in registered apprenticeship, and it was a very big jump for me to come to Washington County Community College. I have spent 30 years in public school classrooms throughout my career, and I've taught ages from pre-K all the way through 6th grade, and had connections in the area where I live. I live in Washington County, which is the easternmost county, and sometimes we're considered part of Canada, but we're really not. We're actually our own county. And so in and among all of the contacts that I made in education, we realized that there is, as there are in many areas and occupations, a pretty big work shortage, and there's trouble with staffing, particularly after the pandemic. So as everyone knows, that changed a lot of things in our state, in our country, and in our world. And I don't think anything changed more drastically from my perspective than education. So there was a critical need statewide and regionally with multifaceted issues, including everything from people not having access to instruction to folks not really even knowing what steps to take to upskill themselves. So I was very fortunate to land at Washington County Community College in the Workforce Division, and under the direction of our Dean of Workforce, Nicole Sawyer, I was able to forge partnerships, some of whom actually were from the district that I was teaching in, and then also some other childcare centers in Washington County. And when I originally met with them, I realized people are willing to experiment, they're willing to individualize, and employers are willing to do things and go about getting staff in ways that they've never even conceived of before. So many folks at the Department of Labor and beyond, long before I arrived, had this really great idea for apprenticeship, and it is just a perfect fit in education. So it's place-based and homegrown programming. It's really exciting to sit down and meet with employers and find out exactly what type of staff they're trying to build and what the needs are in their particular district. And we can work with them and we can make it, as Kate said, homegrown. So we can develop programs that meet the needs of each individual district while creating career pathways which are easily identifiable and simple. Sometimes I think that apprenticeship suffers from folks thinking that it's very complicated. And fortunately, Washington County Community College serves as an intermediary sponsor for this program. And so we eliminate a lot of the paperwork for employers. And it's really exciting to be able to say it's a one-page contract, and we can just sign with you really quickly, and then we can work with your staff almost immediately, which is just fantastic. While, of course, instilling the value and increasing the attainment of the post-secondary degree. And that's Obviously, in my role as an instructor at Washington County Community College, that is of great import to me. So we were listening as we heard all of these needs, and we responded with the help of the Maine Registered Apprenticeship Program. So there are just a few things in what we like to consider the solution for, particularly in education, the workforce challenges. We are offering in our programming free credit-bearing workforce courses at no cost whatsoever to the employer. And that's very amenable because there are, as I'm sure all of you know, lots of school districts who are very, very tight with budgets right now. And so that's really great to be able to go to an employer and say, you know what, we have some free related instruction that's very relevant. It's advised in terms of what is needed right now. We have a trauma-informed series of courses that cover current issues in education that have obviously changed a lot in the past few years. We support accelerated learning. We also offer student supports, including the coordinator of apprenticeship programs, who is not able to join us today. But as far as our supports, we have all kinds. I'm the navigator. We have an apprenticeship coordinator. We have a workforce person who manages all of the different programs that we have. And just Washington County Community College offers a great deal of support in general. So throughout the workforce division and also the college, there are many, many different supports. We are working with current employees or new hires. And we have what we like to consider like a pipeline development. So we're working with these folks and we're hoping that they upskill far beyond our wildest imagination. Just to sort of talk a little bit more about registered apprenticeship, I know that Kate touched upon it, but the structure is that we offer 2,000 to 3,000 hours of structured paid on-the-job learning with at least a minimum of 144 hours of related instruction per year. The apprenticeship model does result in a nationally recognized credential, and in some cases also results in the student receiving badges in particular areas of development. It is a completely supported process to sign on with us for the employer who is now an apprentice, and also through us, the sponsor. There's also a detailed wage progression and skill competency attainment that goes along with a registered apprenticeship. And these are hallmarks of registered apprenticeship, and we're very pleased to be able to offer that to our apprentices and employers. In addition, we really do feel like that this is a very easy process. We're trying to make it seamless for employers so that it's not laden with paperwork and it's not very time consuming. Especially if someone is already working for you, we're able to, again, work with that apprentice very quickly once we sign. We take care of all the administrative load, and we just really are asking that employer to mentor and train the apprentice that they are working with. Again, minimal sign-on paperwork. There's just a few short supervisor and mentor training pieces that we ask, such as registering on Maine Job Link as a job seeker. And then the apprentice tracks their work time and their learning on an app. And then the employer just has to log on, approve their hours, and approve their competencies that they've gained in that particular time set with just a click of a button. So once everyone is trained, that app is generally expected to take a very, very short amount of time. Once a month, the employer logs on after the apprentice has submitted their hours, and they just approve everything. So it really does simplify things for both the employer and the apprentice. We can certainly individualize if necessary, which we have done in some cases. And we use the Washington County Community College related instruction, or in the case of some employers, they already have some instruction, so we can utilize theirs as well. In our particular EdTech cohort, over the course of several months, we offered free 10-course sequence. We have an accelerated schedule, so folks can go through and receive those 31 credits in approximately 9 months. We do have some new courses that we're offering throughout this cohort. This runs through our workforce departments, and we just have a few requirements, but otherwise, if you are interested in a particular area or an employer feels that you need training in a particular area, we can modify that. We do work with the state Department of Ed, and this is an opportunity for a 2+2 transfer to the universities. And we're working out details. We do have some concurrent agreements with different universities so that folks when they finish with us, if they continue to be interested in receiving education, we can help them in that respect. And we stay right with the apprentice from the very beginning throughout their entire sequence. And even once they are a registered Maine apprenticeship completer, we still intend to be in touch with them and guide them along the pathway towards higher education and upskilling all of their credentials. We've been serving many students, but in most cohorts in each class, we have approximately 25 people, and we're offering this online, asynchronous, and through some Zoom. So we're making it convenient for the educator who is working as an apprentice, and we're making it hopefully equally easy and streamlined for the employer. What we found is in this case, we have a lot of interest. We've found that folks who have signed on already are talking to friends, superintendents are talking to each other, and it's really taken off. So we do expect in the next year for this program to bloom even more. We're very excited about it.
Thank you, Mindy, and we certainly appreciate your hard work at Washington County Community College.
Thank you.
Our next panelists are Christian, Braden, and Carissa Morin. Christian Braden is the project manager at the Maine Aquaculture Association. He has a bachelor's in economics and a master's in resource economics and policy. His work focuses on applied research and assisting local aquaculture businesses. He also helped to create Maine's first aquaculture occupational standards and the nation's, and let me emphasize that, the nation's first aquaculture apprenticeship program. Carissa is the aquaculture program manager at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. She's working to support the sustainable growth of the aquaculture sector. Her current focus is helping the industry meet rising workforce demands and providing the kinds of business planning and training resources that will lead to long-term profitability, such as implementation of the Maine Aquaculturist website and the Aquaculture Apprenticeship Program. Welcome, Christian and Carissa.
Thank you for having us here. We're really excited to be kicking off Apprenticeship Week with you guys in this presentation. As stated, I'm Carissa Morin, and I work at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute with aquaculture, and I work very closely with Christian, who is the Maine Aquaculture Association project manager, and they are the intermediary sponsor of the Aquaculture Apprenticeship Program. Next slide. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about how this all got started, just so you have a little bit of background, because it is kind of a unique program. A lot of apprenticeships are kind of with bigger institutions that have multiple apprentices, and so they have their own apprenticeship program. With the aquaculture industry, we have a lot of smaller sized farms, so it's hard for them to have multiple apprentices. So MAA was the one that stepped up and kind of helped out with this. And so where this all came from is that we had information sessions with a bunch of aquaculturists in the state of Maine and talked to them about some of the bottlenecks, and workforce was top of mind for a lot of them. So here at GMRI, we decided to create a workforce development strategy, and we hired a consultant from Scotland because Scotland's aquaculture industry is a lot further along than we are, and they have a lot of training programs there as well. So they came over and implemented some surveys and some interviews to understand the workforce needs of Maine's aquaculture industry, and to also catalog the existing education and training offerings that we have. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that study found. Next slide. So here we have our pyramid of skills. So you can see at the bottom, there's life skills, trade skills, basic husbandry, work ethic, and marine skills. This is what we call the base of the pyramid, and this is the highest valued skills that the industry is looking for when they're trying to hire someone. In the middle of the skill, you have these marine biology positions, HR management skills, HACCP food processing, and then all the way at the top of this pyramid is research and development. So it's like a very specialized skill. And go to the next slide. And what we found after analyzing all of the existing educational opportunities at the time was that there were some major training gaps at the base of this pyramid. So those core skills that the industry was really looking for when they're hiring someone, we didn't have that type of student or intern or program that would provide that type of skills. We had a lot of programs that were focusing on marine biology. You have your 2-year, 4-year schools, marine biology degrees, and then research and development. We had a lot of master's and doctorate programs for that. But at the time, the industry is not really at the point where every single business can hire someone to do R&D. And they really were missing these kind of life skills, trade skills, basic maritime work ethic skills that they were looking for. You can go right ahead. So in order to fix this problem or try to address this problem, we created a 3-pronged strategy. So the first strategy was to identify vocational hubs. So places that are able to teach these kind of vocational skills that weren't being offered in the current programming. So we identified, since Maine has quite a long coastline, we identified 3 different ones. So Southern Maine Community College is in the Southern Vocational Hub, Midcoast School of Technology is our Midcoast one, and then Washington County Community College, who you just heard from, who's doing amazing stuff, is our Down East Vocational Aquaculture Hub. Next slide. And I'm going to let Christian tell you a little bit about the amazing occupational standards that he developed.
Yeah, so these occupational standards, and I won't spend too much time on these because I think people will probably care more about the apprenticeship, but since I know we'll have a mixture of people on here, these occupational standards are essentially what became the apprenticeship program. So these occupational standards really are just lists of very specific technical skills and knowledge that are needed within each job. So these go across all these different sectors included here. So shellfish and sea vegetables, marine finfish farms, land-based RAS, and then land-based shellfish hatcheries. And what they do is they show the different jobs available in each of these different sectors, and within each job show really what is expected of the duties and or the duties that are expected, what skills are needed to go with those, any sort of qualifications or knowledge that will be part of that. So really the idea with these was to standardize across the entire sector of aquaculture in Maine, what the skills, the duties, knowledge, so on and so forth would look like, and thus to standardize the workforce training. We met with, I think it was dozens of farms to come up with these. And so it really was an industry-led process to make sure, not just highlighting what people need in their jobs now, but really to look ahead and, what's your ideal candidate look 3 years from now. So it's a combination of that and a lot of job descriptions and such from across the world. Scotland, again, as Chris had mentioned, but especially across Maine too. Next slide, please. So for the aquaculture apprenticeship itself, yeah, we are, as was mentioned earlier, now the first in the country, as far as we know at least. There's also the one with WCCC and Kingfish that was launched as well for recirculating aquaculture systems. So we have launched ours. We're in our pilot year for the shellfish and seaweed aquaculture technician. We have a steering committee comprised of several different oyster farms and mussel farms, shellfish farms within Maine. And the overall of this is that we have 2,000 hours of on-the-job training, meaning these people are coming on as full-time workers, as I'm sure many of you have in other programs as well. That's something we had to make sure people really understood, that it was not an internship, it's a full-time job. And then 144 hours of related technical instruction as well. And really the transition between the occupational standards and the apprenticeship was 95% copy and paste. So the occupational standards took a lot of work to get done because it was a lot of different meetings, a lot of research, a lot of drafts. I can personally attest a lot of edits were made in order to get them there, but nearly everything then fit into the standards of work. And so there were, of course, adjustments made, and we're working through adjustments right now for next year. But for anyone who's looking to develop them, the occupational standards have been huge, and I've had people reach out and say they're using them to even post for their own jobs for, say, oyster farms or hatchery jobs, things like that. So they've had a lot of use. They're actually being copied at, I have been told, a national level, so across the board for the country through NOAA. That's a future project of theirs. And some other states are starting to use them as well. So those have been a huge success on that front in making our lives easier. So next slide, please. All right, so again, the apprenticeship, yeah, as I mentioned, 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. With the schedule of work really is that copy and paste. We currently have 5 farms right now, and 6 apprentices. That was some last-minute dropouts, nothing quite like a pilot year to have everyone decide who's going to participate at the last minute. So we have 5 different farms with 6 apprentices right now. The way it's set up is that both the host farms and an apprentice will receive a stipend, and this is through funding made available through USDA NIFA. And so that will provide the host farm, yes, will then be paid in order to provide gear, whatever they consider the most valuable. So maybe Grundens, a rain jacket, rain boots, rubber boots, things like that, whatever they deem most necessary. Could be a wetsuit depending on the farm. And then they receive a stipend for hosting the apprentices, and then the apprentices also receive a stipend as they complete the projects. And yeah, so going through the host farms here, they're up and down the coast. We plan on expanding for next year, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next slide, please. Thanks, is back to you now, Carissa.
Yeah, so as Christian said, we have our schedule of work. So that is the 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. You map out different skills that they're going to be learning while they're training. And as Christian said, those occupational standards were key in that. And so we were able to break it out into these different sections of skills to be learned on the job, such as following organizational and safety protocols, vessel and vehicle operation, use and maintenance of tools and equipment, shellfish and seaweed production and management, obviously shellfish and seaweed health, which is very important. And the top one, food safety and regulatory compliance. So that's a key thing that the farms actually wanted to make sure that these apprentices knew, even though they were coming in basically kind of as a farmhand or a lower employee, that this is something that they really wanted these people to know and understand. So you can see these hours that are attached to it. Each of these basic skills will break down into much more skills under that. And they aren't required to know all of these skills. So as we said, we have mussel farms, we have oyster farms. There's different gear on mussel farms compared to oyster farms. And so basically they have to complete a number of tasks that add up to these hours that are these overarching kind of skill sets that they have to follow. So that way, if they're not on a mussel farm, they don't have to be required to understand what predator nets are being cleaned with, because they don't have predator nets. So that's not something we have to worry about. Next slide. And then this is our 144 hours of related technical instruction. So again, we're using Southern Maine Community College as our vocational hub for this. So they are providing these currently through our grant for free for all of our apprentice students, as well as some outside students as well. So we have some extra funding to provide some extra instruction to people that we had. So we kind of broke these down into different overarching sections as well. So we have our introduction to aquaculture careers, our vessel operation and maintenance on the water safety, introduction to shellfish aquaculture, and then introduction to algae aquaculture. And then these are broken down into different sections. So what was very important for us, and which we talked to with our host farms as well as our steering committee members, was the timing of this. So aquaculture is, of course, an outside job, as a lot of other apprenticeships are. And timing and scheduling things around that working season was very important to them. So we really wanted to make sure that we took that into consideration with this being a new program and making sure that it was successful. Having those farms be approving of our schedule was key. Without that, we wouldn't have been successful. So our boot camp was our starting point to kind of get the apprentices introduced to aquaculture in general. Some of them had never even been on the water, and so we wanted to make sure they understood it. And so that happened in about April, so mid-April, and that's because around that time oyster farms are raising their cages from the bottom. So oysters hibernate, so they kind of sink the cages in the winter, and so it was very important for us to be aware of their scheduling and making it go to that. Next slide. Christian, I think this slide is yours.
Great. So yeah, the apprentices for this past year, and this again was our pilot year, and we're still currently in the pilot year, started in April. So we're still moving through, and thanks, Christine. We had 28 applicants for 6 positions, which was awesome to see. It was, in the first year, a lot of people reached out about it. And I've had tons of people actually across the world, almost every week, someone from like Australia, Africa, Europe have been emailing me, asking to be part of this apprenticeship, which right now is just US residents. But as I mentioned before, they receive a stipend. They receive the standard gear, such as boots, bibs, jackets, life jacket. And the way it was done was sort of probably akin to sort of med school matching almost, where they ranked the applicants ranked their preferred farms. And part of that, is where they're limited to geographically. And then we sent those top 3 to each of the farms, and then they interviewed and hired the apprentice themselves. So that was their call to make. Next slide.
All right, so I'm going to tell you quickly about a couple of our apprentices that we have. And again, just want to reiterate that we provided them boots, bibs, and foul weather gear as kind of an equity, because those things cost a lot of money. And so that can be seen as a barrier to entry, as in a lot of technical kind of skill jobs, you need these tools in order to do the job. So that was a main part of what we wanted to provide them for. So anywho, this is Kat, and Kat is amazing. She actually has a degree in marine biology, but then she wound up going, she's from the East Coast, moved to Alaska, was working in the commercial fishing industry, salmon, for a couple of years, and really wanted to come back to the East Coast and wanted to get involved in something more sustainable. And so she is now working on Near Point Oyster Co. and loving it. Next slide. And then this is Gabe. So just to show you, we had someone who had marine background, who had some marine skills. And then this is Gabe, who had no marine background. He was actually a construction worker and a landscaper, and just really loved being outside and was trying to find his fit into a job that would get him to be outside and using his hands. And he has been doing phenomenal on the job, working at Muscongas Bay Aquaculture, and his supervisors cannot sing enough praises about him. And I think he kind of found his calling too, which is really great. Next slide. Christian, do you want to?
Yep, apologies. Yeah,
No.
so this is, and I'll wrap this up quickly, the badging system through the community college. SMCC and WCCC are working together to create a badging system. So in this case, the apprenticeship is through the workforce, and it's not necessarily, a college credit. And it's really identifying skills that are similar, that are, I'm confusing myself here, that identified the similar key skills that are taught. So those similar to what we were talking about earlier with the related technical instruction, and created a badging system. So they can now receive some college credit for these hours. And in fact, I just had 2 people today who reached out to see if they could be a part of this course without being apprentices. So it's already been put to good use. Next slide, please.
And that's it. Thank you. Sorry if we went over on time, but we're really excited about this program and to share it with you. So thank you.
Thank you both. And we can certainly see why you would be excited about this, because this is so intriguing. And I don't know if anybody else was just glued to this conversation, but I was, and I've been on the backside of listening to it develop. So good work to both of you. That's just amazing. So we have a few moments left, about 14 minutes left to offer some panel discussion questions. And if you have any questions, don't forget to put them in the Q&A, and Christine and I will review that and make sure that we try to address each concern or question or comment, emotional outburst, whatever you want to share with us. But at this time, we're going to turn over to the panel and offer up some questions. So this first one is to any of you. What would you say to those that are thinking about starting or expanding their apprenticeship program?
I could take that, Wendy.
Certainly. Thank you, Mindy.
Of course. One thing that I would definitely recommend, and I think that we've heard it throughout today's discussion, is to do research. So going into this, it's very important to know, where are the workforce needs? What specifically are the gaps? What specific training are folks going to need? In my case, we're working with ed techs or educational technicians, and we know that some of them are starting at an ed tech 1, which just requires a high school diploma or equivalent. And we know that we need to upskill them to an ed tech 2 or an ed tech 3. So to have a very clear path, do the research and find out what related instruction will be important to the employers. Then when you approach them, you kind of have everything in order, and you have a very good idea about what their needs are and how you can meet them.
Thank you, Mindy. Anyone else care to expand upon that?
I'd also be glad to add one quick thing. And that was something we found, again, in just our pilot year, was that we thought we were going to have a lot of businesses that were eligible to host apprentices. And when we got into it, we learned there were actually fewer who were both eligible based on in terms of the amount of employment they could cover, in terms of journeyman working, so on and so forth. So we ended up, as we said, with only 5. We had originally 7 businesses slated, and we ended up only with 5. This coming year, just because aquaculture is so new, we will have many more applicants who are eligible. But in the first year, we were definitely limited by that. And I think as we've been looking to grow, that's definitely something we've had to keep in mind to make sure there's enough businesses really there to be ready to take on and train those people and who want to.
Christian, that's fascinating work. I'm just amazed at what they're doing.
Yeah, I would just keep an open mind of the type of apprenticeship. I think there's folks think it's, trades is a very, apprenticeable occupation, but I think we've found a lot of success with management as well. So I would just be thinking of, as some people have already said today, the gaps and sometimes working in reverse too, like think of where you want to be and then reversing and figuring out kind of what Mindy was hinting at of really taking the time to that scaffolding will be important for the apprenticeship.
Great answers, great answers. And working directly with all of you, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. So we're going to open this up to the audience. Do you have any questions? And Christine, I believe you indicated we may have some Q&A.
Yes, so we have a couple questions in the Q&A box. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in there or raise your hand and you could unmute and ask your question that way. So the first question we have, and this is to anyone, is what supports does your apprenticeship offer to help with barriers beyond education and work? For example, life stressors and barriers that can get in the way.
I'll start. I know one thing that we do at WCCC is we make sure everyone has a laptop, and it sounds simple and it doesn't really seem complicated, but we have found out that at times maybe someone has a laptop, but it's something that's really old, or maybe one of our ed techs has a laptop that they use for work, but they don't really like to bring it home. They'd rather not. And so we make sure that we supply laptops just in the same way that other programs are providing, like the aquaculture, for instance, you're providing gear. And, so it's just dependent upon what the occupation is. But you have to make sure absolutely that the apprentices have all the tools that they need. And sometimes you have to ask to find out, because folks aren't as likely necessarily to come forward. So you have to say, hey, like Carissa might say, hey, do you need a pair of boots? What size are you? And we might just say, hey, do you have a laptop and an internet connection? And if not, we make sure to provide that for them. And I also have to say, and it sounds like all of the programs are doing this, but it is very important to provide ongoing contact and ongoing supports. I reach out to apprentices all the time for no apparent reason, just to kind of check in, see what they need. And I have found in my personal experience, that's when you'll find out what supports are needed. And we'll all, I'm sure, in each of our programs, go to the ends of the world to find out, what can we do to help this person to eliminate those barriers so that they can be successful.
This is Kate. This question is really key, I think. So being a part of the Maine Apprenticeship program has really allowed us to think about the systems and services available. And especially for apprentices, they kind of get this special treatment in a way where they qualify a lot easier for public services. So for instance, like your Goodwill workforce services, so they help with transportation, so they can help with bus tickets and money for Ubers. They can also help with variety of supportive services that can kind of come up. There's the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services for disabilities. So if you ever find an apprentice that needs an accommodation that your company can't help with internally, you can also reach externally. And then we've also found supports through veteran affairs as well. So apprentices who are veterans, there's benefits like a housing allowance that is very generous for those that have served, especially within the post 9/11 bill. So really leveraging a lot of your community services, and the Maine Apprenticeship program does a really good job of we have community practices where we get to share a lot of these things that are going on. So that's how we heard about the veteran benefits. It was like, oh, there's another apprenticeship program. And so those sorts of things have really helped our apprentices reach out. And then I'll add that part of apprenticeship programs is a mentoring component. And I think that's a really huge piece because, as kind of suggested, Mindy said, you know, that ongoing, like sometimes the barrier is not when you start, it happens, you know, months in, or like disability can happen anytime. And so having that mentorship relationship is really important to communicate, and just having you know, somebody to talk to when, you know, life happens, as well as, you know, giving that professional guidance and experience too.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. I think that the Department of Labor in Maine here does a great job of checking in with intermediary sponsors and making sure that they have all the resources that they need. Gotten so many webinars and great information spread through that, which has been really helpful. And then also just knowing that when you're taking on an apprenticeship, you're having apprentices that you do need to check in with, you do need to make sure they're okay. You need to have constant communication with them. And for us, what was really great to the program was that even though our apprentices are all at different farms, we kind of started them all as a cohort, like we said, with that 1 week boot camp. And so they all got to know each other. They all got to trade phone numbers. So they have like group chats and they're constantly talking with each other. And I'm actually in a group chat with all of them so we can stay updated on what's happening. And especially with working on the water, there's things that happened. We had classes scheduled. The hurricane came that didn't come. And so we had to reschedule. And it's been really great to just get to know them on a personal level. And I think that also helps them to open up to me when they have faced barriers. I've had to make accommodations for some of them. And knowing that I put their well-being first, I think also made a difference. And I think that's key with people, treating people like people.
Yeah, I would
So
second that, Carissa. I think the cohort model is especially valuable. Yeah, when our pre-apprentices came on board in August, one was having some housing challenges, like had like a you're out in next week kind of a thing, which we've seen a lot in Maine recently. And so we had people who rallied, and, you know, our whole company had a chat going, like, who has a spot, who has an apartment, you know, we've got a family of 3 and they're new to the company, and, you know, how can we leverage our community? So that was really cool to see.
Well, thank you all for your input, and it's so valuable. And I think one takeaway that we can point out that communication is key in your successes. And we do our best to help you with that and navigate these processes. We have one last question, and I think that will help wrap our programming up for today. And that question is, if you want to connect with the Maine Apprenticeship Program, how do I do that? And this slide right here will give you that information. If you just reach out to our Maine Apprenticeship at maine.gov inbox, that will reach us, and we will be more than glad to reach back out to you and follow up and answer any questions that you may have. And Christine has put that in the chat for everyone as well. Just copy it down and reach out, and we will be more than glad to continue our conversations and provide you any information that you might be seeking. So if we have no further questions, which I don't see any in the chat, it looks like we've covered all of those. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us for this year's kickoff to the National Apprenticeship Week, and we wish you all the very best. Thank you.